Dr. Victor Reynolds had always been a brilliant scientist. He had dedicated his life to pushing the boundaries of genetic engineering, and his work had earned him accolades and recognition throughout the scientific community. But there was one project he had always kept hidden, a secret experiment he had been working on for years, hidden away in the depths of his underground laboratory. It had been 5 years since the tragic airplane crash that had claimed the lives of his wife, Sarah, and their 2 children, Emily and Daniel. The pain of their loss had been unbearable, and Victor had been consumed by grief. But he had also been consumed by an insatiable desire to bring them back. He couldn't accept that they were gone forever. Late one stormy night, Victor finally achieved what many had deemed impossible. He had successfully cloned his family. The joy he felt at seeing their familiar faces again, hearing their laughter, and feeling their warm embraces was beyond words. For a brief moment, it was as though the accident had never happened. But as the days passed, Victor began to notice subtle changes in his cloned family. Emily, once a vibrant and curious child, had grown distant and aloof. Daniel, who used to be the embodiment of innocence, now displayed a disturbing fascination with violence. Sarah, the love of his life, had become cold and distant, showing none of the warmth and compassion that had drawn him to her. Victor was puzzled and troubled by these changes. He couldn't understand why his cloned family was so different from the originals. He delved into his research notes, searching for answers, and that's when he stumbled upon a terrible truth. In his quest to bring his family back, he had used experimental techniques, altering their genetic code in ways he hadn't fully comprehended. Desperation gripped Victor as he realized that he had unwittingly played God. He had tampered with the very essence of life, and the consequences were dire. The clones were imperfect copies, marred by the unintended consequences of his actions. They were no longer the people he had loved and lost. As the days turned into weeks, the situation worsened. Emily, Daniel, and Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic and dangerous. Victor couldn't control them, and he feared for his safety and the safety of others. He knew he had to make a difficult decision. With a heavy heart, Victor decided to shut down the cloning project and destroy the imperfect copies of his family. It was a painful and gut-wrenching choice, but he realized that he couldn't undo the damage he had wrought by playing with the fundamental building blocks of life. In the end, as the laboratory went up in flames, Victor watched the clones dissolve into nothingness. He had learned a harsh lesson about the consequences of his actions and the limits of science. He could never truly bring back the family he had lost, and in trying to do so, he had created a nightmarish version of the past. As the smoke cleared, Victor vowed to dedicate the rest of his life to responsible scientific exploration, to use his knowledge for the betterment of humanity rather than trying to defy the natural order. He had glimpsed the repercussions of playing God, and it was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his days, a heavy burden of guilt and regret that served as a stark reminder of the dangers of tampering with the mysteries of life itself.